my channel. My name is Ren and I make videos a couple of times a week about books and pop culture. Today I am going to do some book recs because it is Disability Pride Month. We are not in my office, I am in my bedroom because I've just had surgery, which is ironic. Literally the first day of Disability Pride Month I had surgery on my shoulder because my joints are bad. So I've been in bed, but I've got a bit more movement and I want to make this video and talk about some books. I shared these on my Instagram, but I'm going to go in more detail here. And I'm also going to do an ebook one of these and also a non-fiction one of these as well, because this is going to be quite big because I have quite a lot of suggestions. So these are all books that I either related to or learned from, which I think is really good. Like, it's good to understand other people's pain and where other people are coming from. Disability comes in all shapes and sizes. So I have what is very likely an autoimmune disorder, but we are yet undiagnosed of which autoimmune disorder it is. I'm also deaf. I have 2 hearing aids. I'm hypermobile. My joints are a bit too bendy and don't work because of that, hence the shoulder surgery. I'm also partially sighted. I lost my peripheral vision. So yeah, we've got a lot going on in my body. There's a lot kicking around. There's things that I wouldn't have necessarily said was a disability, but then kind of I think about how it does disable me. So I have like very severe OCD, and when it's really bad, I like don't go out, makes me less able to do certain things. So I think it's important to kind of think about the label of disability and what everyone's comfortable with, and I think it's totally up to the person. I think, you know, these things are classed as that, but it's up to you if you want to use it as a label, if you feel comfortable, or if you want to use other terms. I think it's really important to uplift disabled voices, and I think it's really important to share how varied it is and what disability means, and to listen to disabled voices. So yeah, I have a lot of books to get through, and of course I would like to hear your own recommendations in the comments as well. So first of all, we have Lycanthropy and Other Chronic Illnesses. Now this book involves werewolves, which in itself obviously is fantasy, but it is a symbol for chronic illness. The main character, which is Priya, this is Priya here, she's not a werewolf, but she has chronic Lyme disease, and she has had to kind of put her life on hold because of the Lyme disease and everything that it's done to her body and what it's caused her body to do. So she is dealing with that, and she then ends up joining this Discord for people that are all various forms of chronically ill and disabled. Someone with cerebral palsy, someone with endometriosis, someone with fibromyalgia, someone with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, someone with migraines with aura, which I think is really important because those can be really disabling. I think people sort of just think migraines are just a headache, but actually the impact that they have on you, like they can impact the way, like your speech function, your vision. They're horrific, and I get them quite severely as well, so I understand that. So there's quite a lot of different illnesses explored in this, and different conversations around illness, and how despite having different illnesses they can bond, but then they're listening to each other and learning from each other. And I thought that the representation of the illness in this was really, really, really good. And it also has a werewolf subplot, which is a good metaphor for illness as well. But then we have A Shitbag. I really liked this as well. This focuses on Freya. She collapses and then she wakes up in hospital and she's got an ostomy bag, and she ends up going to a camp with different people that have bowel disease. It's kind of coming to terms with the bag and how she perceives it, and how other people perceive it who have had it for longer, and how it's actually improved their life significantly. But whereas Freya is at the point where she still sees it as an inconvenience, but she's learning from other people and people that have similar experiences, and she's talking with them and learning from them and understanding. I think that it's really good, and it's also amazing that on the cover there is someone with an ostomy bag. Then we have Sing If You Can't Dance. This is one that I read recently and I absolutely loved this. So this focuses on Ven, and she kind of thinks she has her future all planned out. She collapses, wakes up in the hospital and realises she has a medical condition, and this is coming to terms with having a disability, coming to terms with being ill, and then what you're going to do with that, which I think is something which a lot of people don't talk about. It has been 9 years now since I've been poorly. Everything I'd planned for my life got just derailed, completely derailed. This surgery was my 6th surgery in 7 years. It's just, everything just got completely thrown out, and I kind of had to pick up the pieces and start again. And I think that this explores that very well, and explores that kind of understanding of, okay, what am I going to do with my life now this has happened to me, and now this is a huge part of my life. And I just thought it was absolutely phenomenal and important, and a really, really, really good book. Then we have Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I've spoken about this before. Chloe has fibromyalgia, which I also have. So I was diagnosed with that in 2019. People do not give fibromyalgia the time of day that it deserves. And this was phenomenal and explored it very well. And Chloe decides that she wants to get a life, basically. And she's kind of been in this little illness bubble since she got sick and hasn't done things that she would have wanted to do. So she makes this to-do list of all the things that she wants to do. And I thought this was done really well in that it allowed, like, it explored Chloe doing the things she wanted to do whilst also showing how her disability limits her and how she has to make adaptations, which I thought was really good. And I loved this. And then we have Firekeeper's Daughter, and this focuses on Donis. She's always felt like an outsider with her mixed heritage, like in her hometown and also on the reservation, and then she witnesses a murder. She goes undercover to try and help with the investigation. This has got really good representation of chronic pain, funnily enough, shoulder, and this has a good exploration of kind of how that pain kind of is in our lives, so that was good. Then we have Broken Hearts and Zombie Parts, and this focuses on Jesse. He has a congenital heart disease, and he's gonna have to have surgery. He's like really, really, really nervous about the scar that's gonna be on his chest once he has the surgery. So he wants to fall in love before he has that surgery, because he's convinced that someone's not gonna love him post-surgery when they see the scar. And I think that's also a really important conversation, as well as kind of the impact that it has on self-esteem and the way that we view ourselves when our body starts to change in ways that we can't control. You know, I am covered in scars. I'm doing a lot of applying this to myself, but I think it's really important to kind of share how they made me feel as well, because I think that's important when recommending books and kind of showing that. But like, you know, I'm covered in scars now. When I had my tumour out last year, I now have no like sensation in this ear. Like, we become very aware of how our body has changed beyond our control, and I think that this explores that really well with the way Jess is gonna like kind of perceiving his body with the scar and his anxieties around that, and body image, which I thought was really, really good. And then we have Icarus, and Icarus is a thief. He steals pieces of art, and one day he gets caught by someone that he's doing like stealing's son. And there's kind of like an unlikely alliance there, and yeah, it's everything from there. And this has Danlos representation. Oh, that's actually why I picked it up, because I saw people saying it was such a good representation of that. Okay, then I have 2 books that I want to talk about OCD. So I have mentioned before that I have OCD, but I don't think I've ever really fully gone into it. My OCD is very, very severe, and I've been in therapy for OCD for a long time. I don't think people understand what OCD actually is. So I'm going to give you a little lesson. It is not just wanting things to be tidy. It's not just wanting things to be neat. A lot of people with OCD don't have tidy environments. That's not what OCD is. OCD is a condition that causes very intrusive thoughts and obsessions on things. And in order to calm them, you perform a compulsion, you do the thing, and then that calms the intrusive thought. Mine is I have to check things are shut, doors are shut in a specific order in my house. I have to do it in a specific order, I have to do it in a specific way, because my brain tells me, and I get very intrusive thoughts, that everyone I love will die if I don't do it in that way. That is what it's like, and the thoughts are horrific. They are awful. They are genuinely so hard to shake, so hard to fight. And I don't think people realise how extreme OCD is. You know, people use it as a cute little, I'm so OCD, I have to have all my things lined up in a line. And it's like, no. Some people that have OCD might have to have their things lined up in a line, but they will have a very strong intrusive thought, which is the reasoning behind that. It's not just that they like things neat. So these next 2 books are some of the best representation of OCD I've read. In my ebook one, I will also talk about Turtles All the Way Down, because that is also phenomenal. But physical wise, these 2 are the best representations of OCD that I've ever read. The first one is When I See Blue. Lily Bailey, the author, also has OCD, so she gets it. Like, this was just so accurate as to what it is like to be in the mind of someone with OCD. The compulsions, the obsessions, the thoughts. It was genuinely a very raw and real and stripped back version of what it feels like. You know, this is what OCD feels like. So I will say maybe be careful trigger wise if you do have OCD, because there were a few times where I had to take a break. This was phenomenal. And then the next one is Heartstopper, the whole series. So Charlie actually has OCD, and Alice Oseman does a phenomenal job at showcasing Charlie's OCD. Also, the book about Tori, Charlie's sister, for those that might not know, Charlie has an OCD, like full OCD episode in that, where he takes all the food out the cupboard, and that was very real and just a very kind of realistic portrayal. And I think that Alice does it very well, and shows Charlie's OCD in a very realistic way rather than a very stereotypical way. They've done a really good job at showcasing what OCD is actually like. So we'll show those. So then we have Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. This has really good representation of epilepsy. Percy is epileptic, and it's in a time where that was basically go to a psychiatric hospital. So it explores that, and it also explores how epilepsy can impact people. And then later on in the book as well, Monty becomes partially deaf. He loses his ear. I think this whole series does a really good job. The third book does a really good job of like what anxiety feels like as well. Their brother is very anxious, and it shows how that kind of impacts and debilitates his life as well. Then we have Give Me a Sign. This is another book with deaf representation. Lila is about Lila, and she becomes a counsellor at a summer camp for deaf people. I really like this. It's such a good exploration of deaf culture and how that varies, and how deafness is not just you can hear or you can't hear anything, that it's this broad and beautiful spectrum. I think people really misunderstand deafness, and I think it's really important to show people the different level like of deafness and how it varies, and how there's so many different people in the deaf community. It shows itself in all shapes and sizes, and I think that that's really good, and this does a really good job of that. Then we have Show Me a Sign, and this focuses on Mary, and she's always felt safe. The island of Martha's Vineyard and her heritage is kind of, everyone there is deaf, they all communicate via sign language. And then tensions kind of rise, and people come on and they want to sort of investigate this deafness and why they're all deaf. And it has this really good exploration of how people who are not deaf view deafness, and how they see it as something they want to study and something they want to cure, and how deaf people are actually like, I don't see this as an illness, I don't see this as something which hinders me. And this is a really good exploration and conversation. Then we have God Killer. This is on Kissin, and her family were killed by gods, and now she is a god killer. And this has deaf representation in it, and Kissin also has an artificial leg. I've heard people that have limb differences say that this is a really good representation of that, and I think it's a really good representation of deafness. Then we have Your Welcome Universe. This focuses on Julia, and she goes to a deaf school, and then she gets suspended from the deaf school. Then she has to go to a mainstream school, and she's not been to a mainstream school. She has to rely on an interpreter, and it shows how mainstream schools are not equipped to deal with deaf people, and there should be more. And it shows how people kind of see it as other, and how people will talk to the interpreter and not to her. And I just thought this was really good exploration and done very well. I loved this book so much. Then we have True Biz. This is really interesting. This is set in multiple different perspectives. School for deaf students, and this is in the perspective of some of the students and also the head teacher, while the school is kind of going to be closing due to lack of funding, which again shows the lack of funding into deaf schools. And it also has a good exploration of what cochlear implants are like, because I think people think you get a cochlear implant, you can hear and you are cured and you are fixed, whereas actually you need years and years of speech and language therapy, and sometimes it doesn't work. It is an elective surgery, and sometimes it does not work. And there have actually been cases of when people have turned 18, they have sued their parents for putting them through a surgery and trying to cure their deafness. And this has an interesting discussion about how you need that speech and language therapy with a cochlear. And I just thought that the levels in this and kind of the conversations around this, around deaf community and deaf families, different levels and different kind of experiences within the deaf community, was done really well in True Biz, and I loved it. And then finally we have Mooncakes, which is a super cute witchy graphic novel. She has hearing aids and you can see them on the cover and they're like mine, and I love that. It has a blue, mine a purple, and I absolutely adored Mooncakes. It's a very cute fantasy graphic novel. So those are my recommendations for Disability Pride Month. I would love to know some of yours in the comments. Please let me know. Like I said, I'm probably going to do another one of these for all my ebooks, because I have a lot of books on ebook that have really good disability representation, and I'll also do a non-fiction one as well, because I've read a lot of really good non-fiction ones recently. Thank you for watching. Like I said, if you're new here, then I make videos a couple of times a week about books and pop culture, so if you want to stick around and join us, feel free to hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell. And as usual, all the links to my other social medias will be in the description as well. Thank you for watching. I hope you're doing really well, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.